What does Bogota, Colombia, NASCAR's Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, former NFL running back Jerome Bettis, and Richmond, Virginia have in common? Just keep listening, and you'll find out. Folks, what you knowin'? I'm your host, Scott Rowan, and welcome to the debut episode of Richmond Sports Scene and Heard, the sister podcast to the free monthly magazine Richmond Sports Scene, which can be found in more than 400 locations around the city. Our goal at Richmond Sports Scene is to take you deeper inside local health, fitness, and sports more than anyone else. We want to edutain everyone about Richmond. What does edutain mean? It means that we want to be as educational as we are entertaining. We strive with every issue of the magazine and every episode of the podcast to share insight into the coolest people, places, products, and events going on in Richmond. We want to help everyone in town feel proud to be in the River City, and to achieve that goal, we're going to introduce you to everyone who is anyone in town. Sometimes that means musicians, artists, community leaders, and other folks who do not work in sports, but they do contribute to the overall quality of life in town, and that helps with everyone's mental health. You see? We're more than just sports. You can find us online just about anywhere. Our website is very simple, www.richmondsportscene.com. On Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, it's the same thing. You can find us at Richmond Sports Scene. The only place where there's a little difference is on Twitter. Twitter, you're going to find us at RVA Sports Scene. We had to shorten Richmond RVA because with Twitter, you can only have a name of a certain length. So at Twitter, you'll find us at RVA Sports Scene. We're more than just sports, we're also about fitness and health, which means mental health and well-being. After all, what good is it to be physically fit if you're a mental mess, right? The most important muscle in your body is the one residing between your left and right ears. We take that seriously, but we want to have fun with it too. That's one of the reasons you'll find that Richmond Sports Scene is also the best place to learn more about that four-legged friend of yours, your dog. There's a reason why you're noticing more and more therapy dogs in the world, and we're a big fan of that. I've said for years that dogs heal what humans hurt. Consequently, we're going to have consistent stories with tips, tricks, and photo contests about dogs, because those four-leggers are some of the best ways to feel better, which takes us back to mental health. Today's episode is with Todd Parnell, the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for the Flying Squirrels, the AA affiliate of the San Francisco Giants, who, as everyone knows, plays here in town at the Diamond. Now, nobody calls Todd or Parnell. Everyone knows him as Parney. And anyone who's ever met Parney knows about his pants. They're so colorful and loud, you can see them practically across town. But Parney is one of the coolest and most fun-loving guys in Richmond. We sat down in his office to record this, and if you ever have the chance to visit Parney in his office, I urge you to do so, because just like him, there is absolutely nothing boring about his office. He spent 30 years in sports, and the walls are covered with memorabilia and photos. It's less of an office and more like a sports shrine or a hall of fame of sorts. Anyway, I want to thank Parney and all the good folks at the Flying Squirrels for helping me and my staff with our debut issue of the magazine and this podcast. I had such a good time with Parney that we broke the episode into two parts so that it wasn't too long. You're going to hear Squirrels manager Willie Harris come in the room at the very end, and I'm sure some folks are going to say, dude, why didn't you talk to Willie Harris? The guy won a World Series. He's got a World Series ring. He's got to have some great stories. Have no fear. We did. We sat down with him, we talked to him, and he's going to be in episode 3 or 4. So you're going to hear more from Willie later on. But for now, let's stop with all this preamble and this exposition and this mumbo-jumbo. Let's get to what you came here for, and that's to listen to Parney. So without more further fluff, here's my conversation with Parney, the VP and the COO for the Flying Squirrels. Well, let me start, if we could. We were just talking about your childhood. You're from North Carolina originally. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to Carolina, there's only one thing to ask about, and that's barbecue. What you go vinegar? You go
totally vinegar. I'm 100% vinegar. I like Buzz and Ned's, but that's more barbecue based. So Buzz and Ned's, I've hooked on their ribs and on their smoked wings. But as far as good old-fashioned barbecue goes, I always go towards the vinegar.
Is there a place in town that you can give me a tip on if you want a good North Carolina? Have you tried Q barbecue?
Yeah,
with Tuffy.
I think I've had that. Rick Lyons over at Supper has barbecue that's more vinegar based that he puts out. But as far as a good old-fashioned barbecue spot, Mission Barbecue, I think, comes to mind. But again, don't get me wrong, I love Buzz and Ned's, but when it comes to just straight barbecue, I lean more towards the vinegar-based stuff.
I like that. I like the mustard, the mustard ones, with the yellow sauce, the red sauces though they
do it to you?
Yeah, they do. So I've got this theory that what you were like in high school, pretty much you're like that as you get older, unless there's some sort of life-changing event. What were you like in high school?
I was all about sports. I was a 3-sport athlete. I went to a small Christian school in Philadelphia. My parents moved me from rural Locust, North Carolina when I was 13 years old to the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Because of that, I spent 1 year in public school up there, and then I couldn't adjust. It was.
That's a huge change.
It was Beverly Hillbilly stuff for me. I went from living in a town where every single one of my relatives pretty much was in walking distance to my house to going to a school where kids actually smoked cigarettes in the bathroom. I couldn't quite put my mind around it. So my parents adjusted, and I went to a smaller school my freshman year in high school, and I've always my whole life was pretty much totally a one-track mind with sports. I changed my whole childhood with the seasons. The leaves would change, and I would have a football in my hand or a soccer ball on my foot. It got colder, it was basketball time. Got into the spring, I had a bat and a ball in my hand for baseball. So my whole childhood was dominated by sports, and my whole adult life has, therefore, to your theory, been dominated by sports. I was outgoing in high school, but I was so focused on achieving as much as I could achieve athletically that I wasn't quite as social then. Friday and Saturday nights when everybody else was out doing what high schoolers do, I literally had a key to the gym in high school, and me and my 2 or 3 of my close friends would just go to the gym every Friday and Saturday night at the high school, and we would play full court 1-on-1, full court 2-on-2. During baseball season, we'd throw and hit.
You're a total gym rat.
Total gym rat, and I guess I've become. I haven't thought about this, but to your theory, I'm a ballpark rat now. I get here usually, even on game days when it's dark. It was dark when I got here this morning. It'll be 1 or 2 in the morning when I leave. I pretty much spend a wide majority of my life here at the ballpark. So I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same.
What kind of positions? What were you in football? Because you're a tall guy.
I stopped playing football when I was when we moved to Pennsylvania, and I started playing soccer. In football, I was always somewhere on the line or a tight end receiver kind of guy. But then when I started playing soccer, I was actually a goalkeeper because I guess I took up a lot of space.
I was just going to make the joke. I started off in soccer. Then I kept getting bigger and bigger. Usually I'm a pretty big guy in the room. They're going, you make me look like the before picture or something. You look like my big brother. You're what, 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4".
Yeah, no, you tower.
And big boned. Yeah, which is a nice way of putting fat, but
or what I say is 251 pounds.
Yeah, there you go.
Because the limit for most things is 250. So they go, how much do you weigh? And I go 251. Yeah. Don't ask any more questions.
Yeah, there you go.
But I know what you mean because I played soccer. I kept getting bigger, and they moved me from mid to defender till they finally said, "Hey, fatty, get in the goal there because we need a walrus."
Yeah.
And
like the Geico commercial.
Right. What about in hoops?
I actually, believe it or not, I played point guard or shooting guard in high school because it was a private school, so we had a lot of bigger guys. We went 6'6", 6'6", 6'8" across the front as a small Christian school in Philadelphia. But the thing
suddenly you were the small guy at 6 foot plus because you were probably.
But I was a leader, and I've always been a leader, so I was kind of like the on-court coach even back in high school. And we'd go down into the city and just walk onto a neighborhood court and play.
Just hoop it up in the street game.
Hoop it up in the street game. And I got my basketball ability got so much better moving to the Philadelphia area because I literally played 12 months a year. Even though if it was baseball season, I still had basketball leagues going on, and there was always somewhere where you could play hoops in Philly. And so I got a lot better doing that. And then baseball, again, it's always been kind of right up the middle. Wherever wherever there was the most action is where I've always wanted to be. So, pitcher, shortstop, center field is usually where I played. And then I went to college at Messiah because
You could actually pitch?
Oh yeah, I was actually my best thing.
No kidding.
I went to Messiah College, because it was a school that I was comfortable with. I didn't go very far out of my comfort zone when it came to college, and B, several of my high school teammates had gone on there to play other sports. So I moved into a situation in college where I had athletically inclined friends that were already there. And it was a growing school. It was at that time probably about 2,000 students. Now it's almost 4,000 students and a Division III athletic power. I mean, they've won soccer championships. I mean, in probably over 10 men's soccer championships in the last 20 years, probably. I mean, talking NCAA, like they're a national power in soccer, lacrosse. Not so much basketball, which is what I played there. And the baseball team has produced a couple of, at least one major league player in the last 15 years, Chris Heisey, who played for the Washington Nationals and a couple other teams. So going there enabled me to maintain that small environment, which I enjoyed at that time of my life, and still play sports.
So what does that make you then? Are you what were the teams you liked growing up? I mean, they didn't have the Panthers back then. Does that make you an Eagles guy? What teams did you cheer for?
I grew up in the 70s. I turned 53 next week, and
Happy birthday ahead of time.
Thank you. So I was a Miami Dolphins fan because I was straight up front runner. But I love the no-name defense. I love Bob Greasy. I love Jim Kick and Larry Zonka and Paul Warfield and all those guys. And
I have to admit, I'm embarrassed to admit this. I was the same way. I mean, I'm only a couple years younger, but I still have the picture when I was like 6 years old. The first football uniform that I had.
Was it Dolphins?
It was Dolphins.
Number 12, that was mine.
Yeah, I mean, come on, when the team goes undefeated, right?
Yeah, that was mine.
That sort of locks it down.
Mercury Morris and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the other night, I was traveling and I was on a plane and I watched the Nick Bonacotti story when I was on my iPad, which is funny. But so I like them.
That one looks like a tearjerker. I mean, right? Isn't it? I mean,
it's up and down. Yeah, it's up and down.
Yeah, I got to get myself geared up for it.
Yeah. And then growing up in Locust, a lot was about ACC sports. So I grew up with a little transistor radio underneath my pillow for the ACC Holly Farms Chicken Jefferson Pilot Game of the Week with Jim Thacker, Billy Packer, and Bones McKinney from the Coldfield House on the campus of the University of Maryland. I mean, I remember that stuff like it was yesterday. So huge ACC fan. Went to Wake Forest basketball camp growing up because my parents couldn't afford to send me to North Carolina basketball camp, to the Dean Smith camp, because it was twice as much as the Carl Tacey camp.
Sure.
But had a dirt hoop out in the backyard that was always, the grass wouldn't grow because I was just always beating it with the basketball all the time. So a huge North Carolina Tar Heel fan. Anything ACC related, still to this day, I'm a huge ACC fan. NASCAR from my front yard, you could hear the Concord Motorsports Park on Saturday nights. And back then at Concord Motorsports Park, there was a young kid named Dale Earnhardt that was racing, senior. Richard Childress was a young man getting his start as a driver. Now he's obviously a famous NASCAR owner. Dave Marcus was on that track, and a couple other guys who years, not too long after that, went on to great fame, and some of them fortune. But I could literally hear those cars. I'd be out in my front yard throwing a tennis ball against the brick wall and practicing my ground balls, and I could hear it.
But the joke is they're so loud. I almost think that I could have heard it all the way out in Morganton when I was in Morganton. I mean, CMS, the Charlotte Motor Speedway, it's huge.
Yeah.
Physically.
So Concord Motorsports Park was just a little, I don't even know what it is, half-mile oval maybe.
Yeah.
And I think back then it was dirt, now it's paved. So those are some of the childhood memories, but sports is...
Did you have a chance to meet any of the drivers? Did you ever have a chance to overlap and work with them?
Later on in my life, Dale Earnhardt was my boss. He's right there on the right above the Kevin Nash picture next to Dave Coulier. So fast forwarding, he was one of the owners of the Kannapolis Intimidators, my only baseball team, and I was when he died, he was one of my bosses.
No
so
kidding.
yeah, that's one of my kids always laugh because everybody says I'm a terrible driver, and so when they say, "Dad, watch out," I'll be like, "Hey, I used to work for Earnhardt. Everything's cool."
If you're not trading paint, you ain't trying.
But that's one of the things that I've taken into my baseball world is the people that I've met, that some I knew really, really well, and some I knew just casually, which is what I would term my relationship with Dale. But you learn from everybody that you meet, right? And he was a mastermind at branding and a mastermind at image. And part of what I have in Richmond, Virginia now is this brand of Parney, and it has to do with the pants and the gregarious behavior and the guy that'll try anything, to promote or whatever. And some of that I learned from watching people like him, or another one that I learned from is Jerome Bettis, who in a different way has established an amazing brand through his career as the bus. And then there's
Time to Make the Donuts.
Yeah,
I had a chance to work with JB on one of his books.
Is that right?
He's one of the few guys. Tell me if I'm lying, but you've had a chance to meet some of your heroes, and it sounds like you had good stories. But I've also told other people you don't really want to meet your sports heroes necessarily.
Sometimes I haven't really had too many of those situations in my life, but I mean, Jerome's more of just a personal friend than he was a hero. Like he invited us to his Hall of Fame induction. My family, we went to that.
How'd you get a chance to meet him? How'd you know?
When we moved to Altoona and took over the Altoona Curve in 2002 from Kannapolis. So Dell died in 2001, and I stayed one more year. And I thought everything was going to stay the same, and it was staying the same. But I mean, that was obviously he was a big part of our plans in moving that franchise forward. And then the opportunity came through a guy named Chuck Greenberg to move to Altoona, which I had never been to Altoona. So I was moving from my dream house on Lake Norman to Altoona, Pennsylvania, which if you
apples and oranges,
if you think about it, looks like a step backwards. But the ballpark was amazing, and there wasn't a whole lot in Altoona, which meant we were the biggest thing in the town, which I've become pretty good at. I know how to perpetuate that. And Jerome was one of the owners of the team with Chuck Greenberg, and so was Mario Lemieux. So Mario Lemieux and Jerome had this Pittsburgh thing going at the time. They were both playing hockey and football, respectively. And then Chuck Greenberg was Mario Lemieux's attorney and knew JB just through this. Pittsburgh is the smallest city I've ever been in my life. It's a city, it's a big city, but it's a small. When it comes to like the people that make the city move and happen, it's a small circle of people. So they were all in that circle. And then I moved to Altoona, which is 93 miles, and we just developed a relationship. Jamal Dokes is Jerome.
That's funny. I was going to say you must know Jamal then.
Yeah, Jamal's. JB and I are close, but Jamal is like my brother. Like he's family to me. And JB is too. But I talk to Jamal like every other week, and JB and I talk a lot during the fall. But during I haven't talked to him in like probably 3 weeks. But Jamal's. He's going to call me today. We're doing some business together on something.
They're the best guys. I mean, I'm not. It doesn't matter to them, but they were seriously some of the best guys that I've ever worked with. We did some private events. We did a book with them when I was back in Chicago, and they were so cool that right after the Virginia Tech massacre happened, I reached out I worked with one of the football players there, a guy named Tony Kennedy. We were trying to do an auction to raise money, and so I reached out to people that I've been friends with, Gail Sayers and Jerome Bettis. No kidding. We've got it. Yeah, there he is, the Galloping Ghost.
Now, I don't know him. I've always Brian Song's like my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, a true story about him. We're sitting at Ditka's. We had just come out with his book, and Virginia Tech was playing Kansas in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. We're sitting there having dinner together, and I asked Gail Sayers. I say, "So you going to the bowl game?" Yeah, he says, yeah, real quiet, real humble. And I said, oh, okay, we'll try and take it easy on you. I'm just trying to joke around. Flash forward to the game, and of course the announcers go, ladies and gentlemen, the Kansas Comet,
Right.
Gale Sayers coming out here to flip the ceremonial first half coin, the halftime coin. I was like, oh my God, this guy's the most understated guy in the world,
He's sick now, isn't he?
I haven't kept up with him, but
I think I read somewhere where he might have dementia or something.
He
has something that's not great.
Yeah, he and his wife. But I mean, like when it came to getting signed stuff to auction off for the Virginia Tech after the massacre, Jerome Bettis, Gale Sayers, these guys jumped up, didn't ask questions, just reached into their closet. I mean, helmets, jerseys. There's just a handful of guys that you meet that you go, very cool, very cool.
Yeah, it's been a great. It's a very treasured relationship for me with both of those guys, with Jamal and Jerome. They treat my whole family like gold. So anyway.
Because you got one of your daughters here.
Lindsay's at VCU working in the art school, and then Sammy is.
She's still in college.
She's at Coastal Carolina, but she actually is working for our team in Montgomery this summer as a promotions intern.
How often? Now, so just so that the people know, you're VP and you're the VP in the COO, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same roles with Montgomery Biscuits, is that correct?
My title's different down there.
Okay.
I mean, here's definitely more of a day-to-day thing, more of a face of the franchise type sitch. Richmond's always, no matter what we do with Lou DiBella, Richmond's always going to be my number one priority. Richmond's home to me now. Richmond's the place where it happens, and it's the key to me personally. And then Montgomery is something we bought about 2 years ago because Lou correctly identified that we were growing and we had a lot of talented people, but because we're such a focal point in the community and because we're so well respected in the baseball community, people were starting to get picked off one by one from other businesses in Richmond and from other teams in minor league baseball. So we needed to have some place where we could send other people to grow and to progress in their career. So we looked for about 5 years, and then I was down in Birmingham speaking at a minor league baseball marketing convention one time, and Lou called me and said, "Are you still in Alabama?" And I said, "Yeah, I just walked off the stage. I'm getting ready to go to the airport, come home." And he said, "I need you to go to Montgomery real quick." And I'm like, "Montgomery? I don't want to go to Montgomery." And so I went and got a rental. I'd already turned my rental car back in, and I went and got a car again, and I drove the hour and 15 minutes down there. And it was one of those deals where I walked in and I fell in love with it right away. The ballpark's beautiful, the city's beautiful, and honestly, Montgomery and Richmond have, for good or bad, have a lot of similarities. They're both capital cities. They're both pillared in history. Some of it is racially centered.
Can't get away from that.
I mean, it's history, and even socio-economically, the cities are a lot alike. There's a lot of old money, and then there's a lot of no money, and then there's not so much in between sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Everybody probably knows it. Like around here, I joke, if you fart on one end of the town, the other end smells it before it. I'm like, they know what you had for dinner.
Right. And it's a lot of the same things, but it's been fun because we were able to move 3 people now from Richmond to Montgomery to kind of change the culture, develop more of a community-based program there, which is like we're not even a baseball team anymore. Like we're a community entity, a community influencer, a community impactor 12 months out of the year who happens to play 70 baseball games between the 1st of April and the 1st of September. And that's what we wanted.
That's not by accident.
And then that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to be. Baseball is certainly important. I mean, I love the 3 hours of the game, and I love the relationships that we have across the hallway. You just look around this office and you'll see evidence of all the relationships through the last 30 years of not only baseball players but just athletes that I've made and met. And it's my family's life is the sports world, and but we're much more than that. And I think that's what makes the Richmond Flying Squirrels so different and so special in Richmond, is because we're about the Ask Foundation on Saturday night when we're going to wear specialty jerseys and auction them off to go to the Ask Foundation. We're about the Special Olympics last Saturday night when Nutsy and Natasha went down and jumped in the pool for the polar plunge, even though it wasn't cold. We're about the 120.
The solar plunge.
Solar plunge. That's right, yeah. We're about the 120 charitable organizations that we work with in the community. I mean,
120.
Our corporate philosophy is to start at yes and work backwards from there. And if you live your life that way, you're going to be really busy, first of all, and secondly, you're going to influence so many people because. It happens to everybody in their life. A lot of times when you ask somebody to do something for you, you can see when you ask them the question how they're trying to figure out how to say no to you. You can see it in their face.
Yeah.
We try, and we're not perfect, but we try to be open-minded enough that we can juggle our schedule around so that we can say yes a whole heck of a lot more than we say no. Now we've gotten so popular in terms of the mascots, like Nutsy and Natasha do over 600 appearances a year. Sometimes we just run out of time slots.
I'm trying to do the math. I mean, that's 2 appearances a day, right?
So obviously you don't do a lot of appearances on like a Tuesday in December, but you're probably going to do 8 to 10 on a Saturday in May, and we try not to be regionally constrained either, geographically constrained. So, our mascots have gone to the Virginia-North Carolina border because somebody asked us to. Our mascots go to Williamsburg all the time. They go to Fredericksburg. They go, we go places because people ask us to, as long as our schedule allows us. And I think, one of the other things I always say is it's not about the result, it's about the work. And if you do the work, especially when the camera's off,
right?
Especially when the camera's off. If you do the work, the results are going to come. Like, people focus on the fact that we draw 400,000 plus fans a year. We try not to focus on that. We try to focus on our work in the community every day because you know what? That's going to create an emotional connection between the fan and the team that'll far surpass one of just buying tickets. And guess what? They're probably going to end up doing at some point. They're going to buy tickets.
Yeah.
They're going to buy sponsorships. They're going to buy our merchandise. And there's going to be this special relationship that's developed, which has become what the Flying Squirrels are 10 years later. I mean, I this 10th year, I spend a lot of time on, not a lot, but I spend time on airplanes now. I spend time in the back of Ubers. I spend time in the back of town cars. And I think a lot about when I sat in this office for the very first time 10 years ago, and every ceiling had stains on it, and you stuck to the floor, and there was no chairs, and for us to accomplish physically and otherwise what we've accomplished here in the Diamond is mind-boggling to me in a very positive way. I mean, we've overcome a lot of naysayers, and we've overcome a lot of adversity related to the ballpark project just by concentrating on what I just said, the work, focusing on the work that we do every day, and all that other stuff doesn't matter. And that's why I'm so excited that we're having the All-Star Week in July. Now, you're writing this in August, but I'm so excited that we're having the All-Star Week here in the Diamond, because as soon as we got here in 2009, people were talking about when we were going to be in the new ballpark in 2011 and all this, and we're still here. Instead of crying about it, we're bringing the biggest minor league all-star game in Double-A here to Richmond, Virginia, in this facility.
How did that happen? I mean,
and we're excited about it.
You should be. I mean, because not to put salt in anyone's wounds, but I mean, last place in the standings, but totally number one or number two year after year after year in attendance. Is that how it got awarded? Was just knowing that you guys are good at what you do, or did they draw a name out of a hat? No,
it's because the league and the league president knows that we'll work it so hard. And, in minor league baseball, if you do the right job, and again, you do the work, it's all about the work. If you do the work, being 18 and 32 doesn't matter, because if you do the work to create a full fan experience, any fan wants to go home with a victory over a loss. But there's got to be something for everybody here in this ballpark. That's why we have live music. Maybe you don't like baseball. Maybe you like music. That's why we have a wide variety of food. Maybe you like Italian sausage or foot-long hot dogs. Maybe you don't. Maybe you like some type of a wine or whatever.
Sure.
But there's got to be something for everybody. You have to have a real global mindset now in minor league baseball from the age of 2 to 92.
Yeah.
And maybe even above that, and there's got to be something for every single person. And every time I give a speech, and I give a lot of speeches in the community, I always say, how many people here love baseball? Raise your hand. And I know the answer. How many people love baseball? Raise your hand. And usually it's like 50 to 60 to maybe 70% of the crowd raises their hand. Okay, put your hands down. How many people love making memories with your family and friends?
100%.
Raise your hand. 100% every single time, and that's what our market is. Our market isn't the baseball lovers. Our market is people that want to make memories, because we're not in the baseball business. Here's your $1 million quote. We're not in the baseball business. We're not in the entertainment business. We're in the memory making business, and that's what we do 12 months a year, 365 days. No matter what, if it's the Richmond Christmas Parade, if it's trick-or-treating at the ballpark, which we call Squirrel-Halloween, which, by the way, draws over 5,000 people to the Diamond on Halloween every single year. It's amazing.
It's a genius.
But you know who comes to that? You know who comes to that?
Families.
Not our fans, not even families. People that live in neighborhoods that they don't feel safe taking their kids trick-or-treating. So we provide a safe haven for people to come trick-or-treating. Last year, I had a grown man with tears in his eyes, holding his babies in both, not babies, his toddlers in both arms, and he had a couple other kids with him, and he just thanked me. He said, because
they couldn't do it.
He told me where he lived, and then he said, I couldn't do this in my neighborhood. Look at us, our whole family's dressed up, we got all kinds of candy, we had the time of our life. Thank you for doing this.
It's very cool.
And I know that they don't come to games, and that's okay. That's okay, because we got to be something for everybody all the time, and I think that's what makes the Squirrel special.
That's one of the reasons we're doing podcasts and at places I've been. I talk about Huckleberry Finn. You have to be like Huck Finn. You got to get somebody else to paint your picket fence for you. They become your ambassadors.
Yeah.
They become your disciples. They carry your message forward, right? I mean,
I tell a story.
And it helps you.
I tell a story to the staff all the time, and I forget who told me this, or maybe I read it or whatever. But I think it's important, especially when you try to make every single day of the year special in some way. Joe DiMaggio was playing one of his last games as a New York Yankee. He was older. The Yankees were out of the pennant race. It's the last day of the season. But he's diving for balls in the outfield. He's sliding into bases, and they're running off the field. And one of his teammates is like, Joe, what are you doing? You're making us look bad. Like, this game doesn't mean anything. Like, why are you trying so hard? And he said, somewhere up in that crowd is an 8-year-old boy who's never seen me play before. And I want to make sure that he sees the real Joe DiMaggio. And every day when we come to this ballpark, like, some days are tougher than others, but you got to walk through this door that says Funville, and you got to make sure that if there's 4,000 people in the stands, like there probably will be tonight, or if there's 10,000 people in the stands, like there will be All-Star, that they see the same Parney, and they see the same Ben Rothrock, and they see the same Willie Harris across the hall. Like, those people deserve to see you having the most fun and delivering your message, which is one of fun and impact and just one of joy. Like, this is a fun place. This is why we call it Funville. It's not a place where athletic competitions happen. It's a place where people are supposed to have fun. And by the way, an athletic competition happens there.
Is it hard being Parney? I mean, like, at a certain point, do you ever turn it off? Like, when you get home, does Parney turn on when you get in the car? You get yourself geared up to be in this positive mindset, or are you always
it's
just who you are?
It's just a way of life, really, for the most part. Hey, Willie, what's up?
How we doing?
We're doing good.
Man, Willie, I hate to interrupt you guys.
Come on in.
Quick thing, Parney.
Well, that's part one of my interview with Parney from the Flying Squirrels. Tune in next week to hear us wrap up the conversation where we talk about the serious side of having fun. I want to thank our sponsors, Superfan dog capes. Help your dog, help your team. These capes are a trip. You got to check them out. Shaped like Superman capes, they sport the logo of your favorite sports team or school on the back. So the next time you're grilling out, having a social, or entertaining for the game, put a Superfan dog cape on your dog and let your four-legged friend help you cheer on your team or school. They come in 6 different colors, so no matter what logo you want to see on your dog, they're going to look good. They also got a universal fit for any dog collar. So help your dog, help your team. Get that Pooch or Superfan dog cape. After all, every fan has to do his or her part for their team to win, even if that fan has 4 legs and not 2. You can check them out and buy them at superfandogcapes.com. That's superfandogcapes.com. I also want to thank the Superfins. The best site online for any news, features, and fact-checking about anything in the ocean is the Superfins. They take complicated topics and explain them in everyday language that makes everything easy to understand. That's why the motto at the Superfins is underwater, but never over your head. If it swims, it's at thesuperfins.com. I also want to give a big thanks and a shout out to Josh Leaf, a local musician here in Richmond whose music you've heard throughout this episode. The song we sampled for this episode is called Love in Disguise, which is the first song on his new album that's also called Love in Disguise. Josh has a very cool sound. He's a little bit like Stevie Ray Vaughan meets the Allman Brothers meets ZZ Top. Southern rock, blues, Americana, folk, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, he's got a great sound. I urge you to go check him out and go see him wherever you can. He can be found most Friday nights at the Camel on West Broad Street. And if you go to his website, joshleaf.com, and that's spelled L-I-E-F, so that's Joshlief.com, joshleaf.com, you can listen to his music, watch some videos, and most importantly, buy his album. You can also get copies of Love in Disguise online at Apple Music, Spotify, and CD Baby. Here in town, you can buy a copy at Plan 9 Records. Well, that's it for this episode. We're going to keep working to make each episode better. So if you have any feedback, please reach out to us by email at info@richmondsportscene.com. If you're a Richmond-based band and you want to have your music featured on an upcoming episode of Richmond Sports Scene and Heard, email us at the same address, and that was info@richmondsportscene.com. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys have a painless week ahead, and as I say down at the track, keep the dirty side down. Enjoy.
Wow, 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 wow.